I wish I could say that my heart was shattered. I can't say that her acts devastated me, much as I would like to. To be honest, relief was my main emotion. Did I wish I had done something differently? Utterly and completely. I cherished her. I was concerned about her. With her, I wanted to create a life. I wanted to get married to her and raise our kids in a loving, happy family. Still, it was not intended to be. This wasn't always the case. We once had an extremely great life together, and were deeply in love. I was anyway. The specifics of our love story don't really matter, but we met, went on dates, had a great time, and traveled to many interesting locations for our numerous adventures. And I imagined that we would live a long and contented life together. We shared a common trait of being youthful, highly educated, and enjoying lucrative occupations with ample opportunities for advancement. We were well on our way to fulfilling our ambition when we purchased a lovely home in a desirable neighborhood. Linda is a stunning and wise woman. But as it turned out, she was also extremely cunning, ruthless, and appeared to enjoy seriously hurting other people emotionally when she felt like it. She was a horrible piece of work, to put it briefly. I would characterize myself as being above average in terms of appearance and height, as well as having outstanding physical health. Though I'm not Adonis, I'm in good shape. After just over 3 years of marriage, everything began to shift. I believe that loyalty, family, honesty, and consideration were qualities that we both held dear. We talked a lot about how much we treasured each other's honesty before getting married. We also discussed the importance of loyalty in our lives and the fact that adultery would never be forgiven. We also talked about our desire to start a family. Though we weren't sure how many kids we wanted, we knew we would have at least 2. We could then determine if we wanted more. One factor in our decision to move here was the stellar reputation of the local schools. We also talked about when we would have children. We concluded that living alone for roughly 3 years would be the best course of action. We reasoned that doing this would allow us to gain experience in our careers and save money in the event that Linda chose not to return to work once the children were born. But when the time came, she chose to hold off on quitting birth control for a little while longer. She was pretty evasive about when we would start a family again, but I was fine with that. I questioned her about why she thought the time was off, but I didn't press. Once more, she was evasive and never gave a clear explanation for her desire to wait. Despite my disappointment, I didn't press the matter. I was prepared to let her have some alone time. Not long after this conversation, other things started to shift. It was as routine as any tale of spousal adultery, but it happened gradually. Though not too late, she began working later than usual. The justifications included assurances of a possible promotion at work along with a nice pay raise and bonus. But nothing particular was mentioned. The notorious ladies' evenings out, GNO, was the next problem. She said she was becoming more intimate with the people she worked with. This would help with the magical promotion she was aiming for, she said. She appeared to take greater care of her looks, dress a little better, and act more essentially at this period. Naturally, the goal of all of this was to further one's profession. We were spending less and less time together in addition to her working late, the GNOs, and going to the gym more frequently to decompress. In addition, her perspective on me started to shift. It began with passing comments and constructive criticism. Nothing too severe, just a big increase in the number of critical remarks compared to previous times. Moreover, irrelevant topics were the subject of the remarks. She appeared to be making a concerted effort to irritate me. She acted disrespectfully in other situations. I brought this up to her, but she always stated I was overly sensitive or chalked it up to work-related stress. She pledged to change when I brought up the changes in her personality, but that never materialized. She either went on the defensive or outright began to minimize me when I voiced my worries about her behavior. She said nothing when I confronted her about it. I found this kind of emotional roller coaster to be really difficult. I appreciated communication, but sometimes I avoided direct confrontation because I wasn't getting it or it was so negative. Nonetheless, there were times when conversations descended into disputes. She had a neutral approach in other situations. She gave the impression that she was indifferent to my emotions or worries. I really thought that, for some sinister purpose, she was playing tricks on me. I continued to attempt to get through to her and get her to tell me what was going on. I shared my ideas and opinions with her through emails and texts. At work, I gave her cards and flowers. I made an effort to plan romantic dinners. I proposed going on quick excursions with her. I recommended getting counseling. I was attempting to stop our marriage from degenerating into a disaster. She just disputed that there was an issue or that I was exaggerating despite my repeated attempts to point out the issues as I saw them. Alternatively, she would vow to do better, but once more, she never truly made an effort. Other times, she used quite strong language in her attacks. These personal attacks were really distressing, especially since they targeted very private matters that I had only trusted to her. She also said that I was trying to control her and didn't want her to be successful, among other things. This was just total bullshit. Rather than realizing the harm she was causing to our marriage and the actual issues we were having, she began working even later, rarely ate supper with me, and we were rarely together. Some of our friends also spotted her with different groups of people, men and women, in restaurants, clubs, and other locations. Once more, the goal of all of this was career promotion. She denied being where she was spotted on other occasions. When she was spotted with a different man, the denials were very strong. A blind fool could not be unaware of what was going on. But after enduring her awful behavior, lying, deceit, and lack of communication for several months, I was prepared for a transformative experience that would ultimately put an end to our now very unhappy marriage. But rather than experiencing some massive calamity, discovering indisputable proof of her adultery, or witnessing her having an affair, I realized something very basic. Why the hell am I attempting to save a marriage with this nasty piece of work? Yes, I think it's awful that she treated me like that. You cannot treat someone with such obvious disdain and lack of respect and then profess to love them and want to spend the rest of your life with them. Furthermore, I was positive by this point that she was having an affair. We hadn't had sex in a few weeks, and the justifications didn't hold water. Thus, I simply gave up trying. Anyway, I made the hasty decision to end this marriage as soon as I realized this. I located a lawyer and requested that they draft the divorce agreement. We shared a bank and savings account in addition to having separate accounts and credit cards. I just moved my portion to a different account after withdrawing a respectable sum from these accounts. We all had our own 401k accounts with investments, so I had nothing to do there. I then requested that the attorney file for the dissolution of the house's property agreement. I assumed she would accept the divorce decree and sign the documents as soon as she got them. The organization I worked for was a global corporation that had multiple representations in the US and offices all over the globe. I made arrangements for a transfer to an office located on the other side of the country. I just wanted to start over and felt that I would benefit from a change of environment. Again, nothing was stopping me from going to that city. My parents were dead and my closest friends were spread out across the nation. I called Linda as soon as the divorce papers were available, asking her to come home that evening so we could go over everything. I refused to serve her at the office. My intention was to personally provide the documents. I told her it was crucial for our marriage that she be at home so we could talk, even though she said she would be working late. In answer, she said that I was the drama queen and that she would get home by 9 p.m., at which point, if she felt up to it, and wasn't too exhausted, we might talk. I figured she was probably meeting her partner or someone else, so at 6 p.m., I made arrangements and paid extra for the server to find her and then serve her wherever she was. I had already loaded up my SUV with everything I owned by then. I didn't really have many personal items other than clothes. I gave away every piece of furniture, picture frames, everyday stuff, and little mementos Linda and I had accumulated throughout the years of our marriage. To me, none of this mattered. I ensured that every evidence of my presence in that house was removed, save from the pictures. Nothing in the house was destroyed, and I didn't do anything that would draw attention to myself. I just wasn't in the mood for it. Nor did I leave her with any notes. After weeks of attempting to get through to her, I figured the divorce papers would say it all. In addition, I had nothing further to say. The processing server notified me at 6:05 p.m. that she had been served at a nearby restaurant and was eating supper at 6:07 p.m. with a guy. I turned down Linda's call and banned her number after that. Again, I had nothing further to talk to her about, so I didn't see the need to take the call. After that, I hopped in my SUV and left my hometown behind. I was driving when I got a call from an unknown number, around 10 minutes in. It was Linda crying. She was pleading with me to speak with her, telling me she was heading home and wanted to talk about our problems. I hung up after telling her to sign the paperwork. I didn't pick up any more calls after that. I stopped at a motel and stayed the night when I became exhausted. When I checked my phone the following morning, I discovered a ton of voicemails and text messages. One was from her father, a few were from her friends, and the most came from Linda using a different phone. I erased all of them, blocking the numbers that the messages were coming from, save for her father's voicemail. I left after eating to go to my new home and employment. I then gave her father a call and spoke with him for a little while. Linda seemed to be startled and upset by the divorce. He further asserted that she would stop at nothing to reunite with me and that she needed to talk to me. I told him that was it, nothing more. I explained that I had been trying to talk to her for months, but she was not interested in addressing the problems as I perceived them. It was a deal breaker for me when I told him that I was aware of her affair. He demanded proof, so I told him that I hadn't looked for any and that I didn't have any pictures or anything similar. I had lost faith in her because of her dishonesty, rudeness, and lack of communication. I didn't want to try to make amends because I no longer trusted Linda. Since we've always gotten along, I respected him by speaking with him and allowing him try to convince me to come back, but I refused to accept his advances. Ultimately, he became angry with me and began to feel animosity. I didn't answer him badly. Instead, I wished him well in life and hung up. I received a lot of calls and texts during the next few weeks from friends and acquaintances, but I usually either didn't answer at all or answered briefly. They all said Linda was inconsolable, but I felt she was playing the helpless victim. It didn't matter if she had come to this realization on her own. My life with her was over, and I had no interest in her or her desires. My attorney did inform me that I would need to attend court-mandated counseling, but that was quickly resolved. Through a teleconference including the judge, my attorney, and her attorney. The judge denied her plea since I made it very clear where I stood on our marriage and reunion, in addition to the fact that I was now thousands of miles away. I never thought Linda really wanted to make amends. I still believe it was all a performance. Once more, it appeared that she took pleasure in acting helpless. I never had a face-to-face conversation with her since I never took calls from numbers that weren't on my contact list. She did, however, manage to leave me a couple voicemails. I simply erased them, blocked the number, and of course never answered back as soon as I heard her voice. She also attempted to send me emails, but I quickly blocked the address and erased the messages after realizing they were from her. I finally received the divorce decree in the mail a little over 6 months after I departed. It was after that I heard very little about Linda. I occasionally heard about her from a few friends and acquaintances, but for the most part one just listened courteously and never inquired about specifics. She was discussed less and less over time. I've never understood her past or the reasons behind her behavior towards me. She had changed dramatically, at least from what I had assumed to be her normal self. Perhaps all along she had been acting, and her mask finally revealed her true identity. Alternatively, it's possible that she suffered from a mental illness, or that the idea of actually having a family drove her insane and caused our marriage to fail. I have accepted that I will never know, but I will never know what caused her to treat me so badly and maliciously during our marriage. To be honest, I didn't have the energy or the desire to burn her to the ground, but I know some people would want to know why. To set everything up, too much work and time are required. After I experienced my epiphany, I no longer felt the need for revenge or evidence of her adultery. What would that prove? particularly because I didn't give a damn who was tagged as the reason our marriage ended. Who cares if she lied and claimed I was at fault to the entire world? I refused to give her any more power over me. I also cut all ties with her and everyone else in that city. Whatever they think of me, I don't care. I seized the opportunity to begin again as I needed and desired. Living well is ultimately the best kind of retaliation, and I'm making sure to do just that. I'm grateful.